So I said in one of my previous videos that I am determined to be consistent on values and on issues of injustice. And hopefully by talking about this incident in Manchester, which I'm about to do, that will indicate my determination to do that. But it covers wider areas. It covers the yob culture, which I was talking about in the previous video, and it's more serious than that. It really is a gang culture, but also the poison of racism. And this is what happened basically. This is from the Manchester Evening News. A 13-year-old boy was battered by a racist gang in a park. And this is the report. It's not too long, so I'm going to read it out. A boy of 13 was repeatedly kicked in the head by a gang of older teens during a brutal race hate attack. 6 white youths reportedly circled the young victim in a North Manchester park before asking, and I apologise, this is a quote, "Are you a Paki?" then battering him. The victim's dad told the MEN there were there were no other injuries on his body, just his head. I think they intended to kill him. I assume what he meant by that was that the repeated blows to the head was intended to put him in concussion. Not that there's any thinking in this sort of thuggery, but yeah. The attackers only stopped when 2 of them pulled the others off him, realizing they had gone too far, and that shouldn't be confused with any sudden conscience. They just didn't want to go to jail. Police are investigating the incident as a racially motivated, aggravated assault which took place in Plant Hill Park, Blackley on Saturday evening. The boy's father, who is Syrian, said my son had gone to play there with 2 white friends. Then a group of kids had gathered round him. One has asked, "Are you a Paki?" Before he could answer, he was pushed to the ground and they started kicking him in the head. He managed to put his arms around his head for some protection. They kept kicking him until 2 of them broke up, realizing they'd gone too far. His 2 friends ran off because they were so scared, but one of them was knocking on doors trying to get help. Eventually, the victim managed to get to a friend's house nearby, and adults there alerted his parents. His father said, "I don't understand the culture behind this. The attackers must have been brought up in homes based on hatred. It's despicable what they did to him. My aim is for the perpetrators to be identified and charges brought against them." And there's pictures accompanying this. It does show the kid is badly bruised, only 13 years old. After spending a night in North Manchester General Hospital, the boy was discharged and is now recovering at home. He suffered severe swelling to the right side of his face, with a bruise on his cheek and lip. The attack happened at about 8 p.m. and police are appealing for information. The child's mother said he is shaking and remains in pain. He has gone very quiet and does not want to talk about it. He is normally a very friendly boy. His father said there are no CCTV cameras in Plant Hill Park. The council needs to improve security. The park is for the community, not for gangs. I have lived in this country for 20 years. My son was born here. We have received a card and flowers from neighbours. We are part of this community. There are sad, sick people who have done this. Greater Manchester Police spokesman said police were called shortly after 7:45 p.m. on Saturday, the 24th of June 2017, to reports of a racially aggravated assault on Plant Hill Road Park, Blackley. A 13-year-old boy suffered injuries to his head and was recovering at home. Hate crime will not be tolerated in Greater Manchester. And this is very important. Inquiries into the incident are ongoing, and anyone with information should contact police on 101, quoting reference number 2107 of 24th of the 6th 17, or Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. I'm going to read that again. Crime Stoppers anonymously 0800 555 111, or contact Greater Manchester Police directly 101 and quote reference number 2107, the 24th of June 2017. Okay, so I felt it was necessary to read out the details there so that people understand the context, because there will be some people who question, oh, well, was it racism? My answer, of course it was. Clearly, this was racially motivated because the attacker specifically asked him, "Are you a Paki?" The fact that he isn't is irrelevant. Clearly, they saw that this guy wasn't white, British, and so he was targeted. This is disgusting. And it comes down to the point I was making in my previous video about the yob culture we have in this country. These these absolute scumbags who think that they can just terrorize fellow members of society and get away with it. The fact that two of the gang members pulled the others off is not, I don't read that as a suddenly got a conscience. They simply don't want to go to jail. I hope they are hunted down. I hope they are dragged from their beds, and I hope they are incarcerated after a fair trial. But really, crimes like this are beyond sickening. They're cowardly because it is always a gang on one individual. That is the epitome of worthless cards. And I will say this, sometimes I look at some of the comments on my channel and I do wonder, because I've made videos that veer to the right, because I've attacked pan-Islamism, because I've attacked political correctness, because I've attacked some of the attitudes that the left show, and I stand by everything I've said. What I don't want to do is give the impression that I want to become some sort of channel that welcomes people who really are of a blood and soil nationalist mindset. If that is you, I don't want you to subscribe to me. Please leave. I want to be very clear about this. I abhor racism of all kinds. And I will say, on a personal level, I am familiar with situations that have happened in Sunderland recently, where I live in Sunderland. I'm familiar with them not in the sense that I witnessed anything, not in the sense that I was there or anything like that. And I would say right now, if I was, I would be going to the police. But I am familiar of situations, people that I know who have been victims of racial hate crime. I'm not going to give more details because these are ongoing cases, and there's also an IPCC case going on. So I don't think that talking about it in detail in this video would be particularly helpful. But suffice to say, I am aware that this happens. And I will say this to the likes of Britain First and the ADL. You insist that you're not racist. Okay, prove it. Vocally, unreservedly condemn these sort of cases. It's not good enough to say, oh, well, the same thing happens to white people. Yes, it does. And that's wrong. But there has to be some consistency. You can't claim you're not racist if you don't vocally and unreservedly condemn this. Um, and frankly, you can't say that there's absolutely no influence out there. Yes, first and foremost, it is the gang that done this that are responsible. But frankly, there are certain right-wing people who are saying that all all Muslims are the problem. Now, I don't know if this young guy is Muslim or not. That shouldn't frankly matter. It shouldn't matter. Incidentally, the people that I know of who were attacked were Iranian. Some of them happened to be Christians. They were attacked simply because of their dark skin. This is a fact. And there are people, I hate to say it, well, you know what? I shouldn't, it's not a case that I hate. I don't even know why I said that because I'm not a right winger per se. But I will say this: there are people on the right who frankly do underplay these things, and they do want to pretend that there isn't a problem with racism in society. There is, there is. Now, whether it has been increasing since Brexit or not, you know, it's hard to know because the statistics can be, you can portray statistics in various ways. It might be that more cases are being reported, but every decent human being who hears about something like this not only must condemn it, but they must acknowledge that there is a problem in our society with this sort of crime. And yes, you get examples of thugs, terrorizing other white people, as is the case with Susan Boyle. But there is something particularly vicious about this sort of attack. And I think that the idea that people want to underplay it and say, oh, well, it's nothing to do with racism, you're deluded. If the attackers are clearly making racial profanities, then it clearly is something to do with racism. And yes, I'm aware that there are Asian and black gangs who do the same thing. They're they're equal scumbags, as far as I'm concerned. I think all gangs are scum. I think they all need to be put behind bars. I have very, very hard line views on this, and I make no apology for that because nobody should be in a situation where they are beaten to a pulp for no other reason than their appearance. I read about a young woman who was murdered in Scotland in 2007 for no other reason than she wore gothic clothes, beaten by a gang of worthless scum. This sort of gang culture, we need to purge it from our society. And it isn't always based on racism. Like I say, sometimes it is based on, the sort of clothes someone wears or someone's appearance or they're overweight or whatever. It's a particularly vicious sort of bullying, but we really, really need to purge this from our society. It's not enough condemning it. It's not enough saying, yeah, it's a problem. These people need to be polarized. And anybody who makes excuses for it and tries to get into whataboutery needs to be challenged. Because if you're getting into whataboutery and saying, oh, well, I don't care about that because they do the same thing to white kids, it's two wrongs don't make a right. You cannot demonize an entire group of people because of the actions of some. And this isn't being politically correct, it's just common sense. So the issues here are not about this one case in Manchester, bad as it is. There's been, unfortunately, a lot of high profile cases like this. There was a young guy attacked in London earlier this year. There was a Polish man attacked in Harlow, I think it was last year. Enough is enough. These sort of criminals need to be really, really, I would put them in shackles. I would absolutely treat them as absolute vermin that they are. They're the lowest of the low. They are absolute. It makes me so angry. So that's why I don't want my channel to become some sort of vocal point for neo-national scumbags, blood and soil racists who think that because I've made some videos that they're to the right, I'm somehow sympathetic to their ideology. I am not. I am against pan-Islamism. I'm against regressive left attitudes to it. What I am not for is blood and soil nationalism and this idea that all Muslims are the same or everyone with dark skin is a problem. And that is the mentality of blood and soil nationalism. It is. Stop denying it. So this makes me very angry. And I'm saying right now, if you think this is not a big deal, then I would rather lose subscribers than have subscribers who have this sort of mindset. I really would. Because then it makes me look like something I'm not. And so, I'm not attacking all my subscribers here. I'm just talking about a minority of individuals I have seen on my channel who are basically racists. I don't want them here. I want nothing to do with those sort of people. So I'll leave it there. If you live in the area and you know anything about this, please, please, please do the right thing. Do the right thing. Go to Crime Stoppers. You don't need to give your name. You can do it anonymously. If you know anything about these people, report it because they will do the same thing to someone else. And it is just wrong that this young man will not get justice. These people need to be given a very long custodial sentence. Anyone who violently attacks a stranger for no reason is dangerous, and they need to be incarcerated to protect the public. I really, really do think that we need to purge gang culture from this country. Whenever we have a new government, there's always some sort of vocal ideology that they want to enact. So with David Cameron, it was a big society. Theresa May hasn't really put forward any idea as such. But every government puts forward a sort of ideology. I think we need a government that really looks at crime as and looks at it in a way that we need to have some sort of revolutionary change, whereby this sort of thing it's never going to be completely eradicated. I accept that. In a country of 65 million people, it's going to be probably very, very difficult to completely eradicate this sort of crime. But we do need to make examples of those who engage in this sort of behavior. And the left, the irony about this, I will say this, those left wingers who have a very lenient attitude to crime interestingly enough, they're very vocal when it comes to racist crime. And that's an area I would agree with them. We do need hardline penalties to this, but they need to be more consistent because this sort of crime, the offenders deserve zero sympathy. They're scum, they're thugs, and they're dangerous, and they need to be incarcerated. I mean, the police in the area must have some information about, someone who does this will not have a clean record. Someone who does this will have previous offences. And it's a great pity there's no CCTV in that area. Greater Manchester Council needs to install that because clearly there's a problem here. It makes me so angry because I've had problems with gangs. I've been assaulted for no reason. It's a very unpleasant experience, and it's bad enough that it happens. But what has to come out of these things is justice, at the very least. It shouldn't happen in the first place, but when it does, there has to be justice. So once again, I'm going to read out those numbers. You can call Crime Stoppers anonymously 0800 555 111, or you can contact Greater Manchester Police 101 and the reference number is 2107. And you need to quote the date, which is 24th of June 2017. And finally, anyone that thinks, oh, you're only focusing on this because it was a white gang, not at all. I think all gangs are scum. If this was a black gang attacking a white kid or an Asian kid, I'd be saying the same thing. If it was an Asian gang attacking a white guy, I would say the same thing. There was, in fact, in Glasgow in the late 2000s, a young man attacked by an Asian gang who had went out of their way to find a white victim. So racism, I don't agree with those lefties who say, oh, white people, only white people are racist. That's delusional. Racists are scum, whatever colour they are, and these people need to be found, they need to be punished, and they need to be made an example of.